So I want to talk about the evolution of consciousness, and I'm going to use um, Don Beck, Don Beck's spiral dynamics model to do so. So, um, there are various maps and metaphors that we can come up with to try to uh, describe accurately, um, or at least just depict adequately, these various structures of consciousness that we have as human beings moved through during the course of the last 100,000 years or so. Um, and so first I'll lay out the spectrum of colors used by Don Beck to depict these various V-memes, as he calls them, or structures of consciousness, ways of experiencing the world, or ways of experiencing, because in some levels of consciousness on the spectrum, to even distinguish a world apart from an I, a subject apart from an object, that hasn't even happened yet. So we're talking about just experience generally. It's only when you get to a certain level that there is a subject and an object in experience. But let's start at the beginning with beige, which this is the instinctual V-meme, where you're basically just using your instincts to survive. Everything that you've inherited biologically that allows you to find food, water, to have sex and reproduce, just to take care of yourself at a very basic level. So the first human beings, still largely animals, and these are just different categories we've invented. There's obviously no sharp line between any species in particular. It's a gradual process of diversification, and that this is true for Homo sapiens as much as any other species. So the beige is kind of this liminal space between human and animal. And for people experiencing themselves, this would be the level where they're totally submersed in nature, and the notion of an I separate from an other hasn't even arisen yet. So from beige we move to the purple V-meme, where belief in magic first starts to arise, because these people are developing spoken language, and for them, language was a very powerful weapon almost, and it could also heal. But they hadn't yet realized that the words that they use to describe the world aren't actually the world, which is why their language took on magical qualities for them. So everything in nature is meaningful. It's a sign of some event which is going to occur in the future, and so they're constantly creating taboos and superstitions and so forth, because the world is permeated with meaning for them. The next structure would be the color red, and it's maybe 10,000 years ago, when we first start to settle down from a more hunter-gatherer type lifestyle, and the first villages are formed, and we start to want to protect ourselves from this very dangerous natural place. It's a very egotistical, it's the rise of the ego, you could almost say, where we do for the first time distinguish ourselves from the natural environment. And from there we move to the blue V-meme, which is sort of mythical meme. This is where all of the world's, at least Christianity, Islam, Judaism is kind of a transitional religion between red and blue, because if you look at the way Yahweh is depicted in the Old Testament, he's more like a nature god than a truly monotheistic God. The book of Job, for example, shows how God is somehow mixed up and immoral, or amoral, you could say. He's still sort of this natural being that acts based on desires and whims. I mean, torturing Job because the devil questioned God's creation, the beauty and faithfulness of God's creation, and so God has to somehow prove to the devil. I mean, Yahweh is a picture of a very young and inexperienced God. And Christianity turns it from a red God into a blue God, you could say, or from more of a pagan God into a Christian monotheistic God. But, of course, it remains, God remains a Trinity, at least in Christianity. So there's still not a true monotheism. But anyways, the blue meme is when we get a sense of morality for the first time, of righteousness. So laws and regulations develop. You get a kingdom, basically, a king in charge of a populace of serfs. And then the next V meme would be the orange V meme. And here, this would be around the time of the Reformation in Catholic Europe, later the French Revolution, the American Revolution, this sense of the equality of all beings and their naturally or divinely given rights to happiness, the pursuit of happiness and liberty. They can do what they want so long as they don't harm others. I mean, the idea of the American Declaration, the American Constitution, these are orange ideas. They come out of a sense of strong individualism, a sense of, economy being something you work hard at, and that's something that should be a competition between individuals with certain rules. I mean, there should be laws guiding how we interact, but the basis of our economic exchanges for orange should be for individual profits. And the next structure would be the green structure, the green V meme, where people start to recognize the relativistic nature of a lot of our moral systems. We start to see the inherent interconnection of all perspectives, or at least that there are multiple perspectives, and neither one in particular could ever be finally true. We start to gain a better understanding of our place within the ecosystem of the planet. Every structure of consciousness up to this point hadn't yet recognized the fact that we live on a living world with a finite amount of resources. And so that old economic paradigm of, take whatever you want from this standing reserve of objects in nature and make something valuable for human beings, that sort of relationship with the natural world is seen as destructive, and the green structure tries to begin this shift into something different. And I think that something different, which green eventually achieves, is the yellow structure of consciousness, which is, a very new way of looking at the world. It's a systems-oriented approach where you can see the parts and the whole and the relation of one to the other, where you're no longer mistaking any particular perspective for the right one, but you're able to see all perspectives as part of a larger whole. Green starts to become aware of this possibility, but yellow establishes it as a given actual ability. And from yellow, Beck also lists turquoise, which he calls the holistic meme, which is even more of a novel emergence, of a recent novel emergence than the yellow meme. But I'll just read how he describes it, because I don't want to stray too far from what he is trying to say about turquoise. He says the basic theme of the turquoise V meme is experiencing the wholeness of existence through mind and spirit. The world is a single dynamic organism with its own collective mind. Self is both distinct and a blended part of a larger compassionate whole. Everything connects to everything else in ecological alignments. Energy and information permeate the Earth's total environment. Holistic, intuitive thinking and cooperative actions are to be expected. Each time we move to a higher stage or structure in the spectrum, we're not getting rid of or completely transcending the lower structures. We're making use of them to do something new. So we're always working through all of these structures. Yellow is said to be the first time that we become aware of the fact that we're working through these structures, but nonetheless, unconsciously, that was always the case. We could say that individuals go through each of these mutations, but so do societies. And the question I want to explore in part 2 is how this dynamic, this relationship between the evolution of the individual and society plays out together. Because there's obviously sort of a feedback loop going on here.